Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my new video. In today's video I'm going to be talking about the Korean War and how there's a lot of similarities with what happened in the Korean War with what's happening now with regards to the island of Taiwan. And I'm going to explain why. I'm going to give you my thoughts. I'm going to give you also a brief history lesson as well. I'm going to be talking about stuff that you don't really see or hear in the textbooks. So without further ado, let's carry on with the show. So the Korean War started in June 1950 and ended in July 1953, and it was a 3-year war, and it's not very much spoken about in the United States, mainly because there were so many casualties that the US suffered.
I'm not sure I can tweet any of this.
Partly a sort of mindset and attitude thing. Yeah, it's working culture. If you go to China, it's quite different, I can assure you. You know, there's a fundamental issue of British working culture, and it's not essentially, if we're going to be a richer country and a more prosperous country, that needs to change, but I don't think people are that keen to change that. So I think there's a slight thing in Britain about wanting the easy answers, and I think that's my reflection on the election and what's gone before it. And the referendum is like, who say it's all Europe that's causing us these problems, so it's my groups that cause these problems. And actually, what needs to happen is, a bit more, more graft.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my new video. My name is AJ. I'm here to take you through some of the news topics of the day and the last few days. I know you've seen some clips in the beginning of the show. I'm just going to start with Liz Truss. So Liz Truss made some comments privately in some talk show, and she mentioned that the problems that UK has got, and the reason UK is not very productive, is mainly because people are not working hard enough. Apparently people don't work hard outside London, plus British culture, they don't graft, they don't work hard. And this basically surfaced out, and obviously she's getting a lot of flack for it. So I have my views, really. I have very strong views about this. And again, you can see from this article here, Britain blocks Chinese takeover of UK electronics group. So it's very, very easy to blame the working class. The working class are a bunch of puppets in the UK. They basically sit there and take as many punches by the government, and they've been taking it for years. The middle class is slowly deteriorating, as you know, with all of these high interest rates happening, the cost of living, the high mortgage rates, the high taxes, the increase of gas bills, electricity bills. The middle class have always been easy targets for the government to blame. And when the economy doesn't do well, it's very easy for Liz Truss to say, oh, it's the British working class, they don't work hard enough. But what about the government's policies? What they're doing around the world? First, obviously, started with Brexit. Then they're blocking every single Chinese investment that are going into the country. They're blocking every single thing. And it's come to a point now where Chinese companies are looking at England saying, you know what, sod it. It's no point investing in that crappy country because whatever we do, they're going to block it anyway. Plus, if there's any fight in the Taiwanese Strait, for example, the Britain being puppets as they are, they're going to block it and take that money. So there is no point investing in UK. So what the Chinese have done recently, they've invested $7 billion in I think it was CATL, which produces car batteries, and they invested it in Hungary. And I can imagine any country in Europe or any country in the world would have loved a car battery company or car battery factory to be placed in their soil. 7 billion, China is basically spending. And I remember the Chinese foreign minister saying this is a thanks to Hungary for being very good friends and having very good relations with China. And that's what you get. If you have good relations with other countries, you get treated well. You get investments coming into your country, and that does very well for your country. Britain, on the other hand, you got Liz Truss, who's blaming the working class instead of blaming herself, blaming the Tory party, blaming the government. It's the government's fault that we are in this mess. It's the government's fault for putting all these ridiculous sanctions on Russia, which have, completely boomeranged and hit them back. It's the government's fault for Brexit. It's the government's fault for all these ridiculous COVID policies. It's the government's fault for printing so much money. It's the government's fault for kicking out all of these investments. It's the government's fault for being such puppets of the United States. I can go on. There's hundreds and hundreds of things I can put on the list. So for Liz Truss to say, Britain doesn't work hard enough, when Britain's working hours are the highest in Europe. They're higher than Germany, higher than France. So you can't say British people don't work hard. British people, the hours they work are the highest, and the holidays they get in Britain are lower than compared to other countries in Europe. Other countries in Europe get much more holidays than UK people do. So UK people are having to work harder to pay for their bills, which are going up, electricity bills, gas bills. She's happy to let all of these British gas companies take profits, 7, 10, 20 billion profits over 3 months, 6 months, a year, while basically the middle class take the hit when there's a fuel crisis. France has only increased their prices by 4% because they nationalized most of the energy sector. While Britain, they see the middle class as muppets. They're letting them take the hit. It's absolutely ridiculous for Liz Truss to say that. Absolutely ridiculous. And I'm just completely sickened by what she has to say. The second clip is obviously you have Sanna, the Finnish Prime Minister. And I get it, she's a human being. She wants to have fun. She goes out, she parties. I get it, this what young people do. It's fine. But I just don't think it's right when the country is going through so much crisis and you're out there partying like you have no care in the world. It's very much like Boris. When the whole country was in lockdown, Boris was having parties in number 10, while everyone else was not allowed to see their loved ones, not allowed to go to hospital, seeing their loved ones die, not being able to have funerals, while Boris is partying away. Same with Finland. Finland is having one of the worst crises in its history. You have high inflation. Again, Russia has cut gas to Finland, so Finland's they're having to pay higher gas prices. The inflation's going through the roof. They're having a deindustrialization. They have huge issues with Russia because they want, they are joining NATO. So there's huge security concerns, economic concerns, and it's all down to her. Finland had a very good relationship with Russia. There's no issues, but now she's pushing. She pushed Finland into joining NATO, being very, very anti-Russian, causing all sorts of economic issues. While people are struggling, she's out there partying. And it was quite funny. She was asked to take a drugs test because they thought, that she was under drugs or something, the way she was partying. I mean, I don't believe she was under drugs. I think she was under a lot of drink, but probably not drugs. And she was saying that, I've taken a drugs test and stuff. But it doesn't matter. You cannot go out partying and get caught partying when the whole country is having an economic crisis. Do you see Putin dancing like that? Do you see President Xi dancing like that? If Finland has a war and the Prime Minister goes out partying and dancing, do you think it's okay? Alright, they're not at war, but they're having an economic war. And they could go to war with Russia over NATO. Who knows? And then another video surfaces of her dancing with another man. And this man is not her partner, by the way. This man is identified as a rock singer. And you can see how closely she's dancing with him. He's obviously getting very, very close at some points. And I just think it's very, very inappropriate, guys. Especially for a woman to be in a long-term relationship, to be dancing that close to a man. I mean, it's just not right. I mean, yeah, it's fine if you don't run the country, you can do stuff like that. But if you're running the country, if you're a PM, you need to stop doing that shit. This is seriously effed up, guys. Seriously effed up. So let's move on. So Germany to face the biggest inflation in 70 years, central bank. Germany's energy crush caused by reduced gas supplies from Russia could push inflation up 10%. So I've heard that Nord Stream 1 is going to be shut down again. They're going to be shutting it down for about 3 or 4 days. And I've also seen some fake news on YouTube by a certain channel saying that the Nord Stream 2 has been reopened again, which I double checked, and it's definitely fake news. Nord Stream 2 has not been reopened, but if they did, it would have solved a lot of problems for Germany. Right now, let's just say you have another month or two of we're just finishing summer now. I mean, I live in Manchester at the moment, and it's gone very, very cold. And I'll probably say another month before we start hitting autumn, when it gets very, very cold. That's when people start putting on their heaters. So Germany has got maybe a month or two to build up their gas reserves before, say, winter comes. I just don't think it's enough time. Just don't think it's enough time for Germany to have that kind of gas. And I think within 3-4 months or so, when German industry really, really suffers during winter, when people are really suffering, they need to keep their gas on. And what is Germany going to do? Is Germany going to start having blackouts in the middle of winter and people freeze to death? There's going to be some major, major issues if they don't sort this out very, very fast. And I heard German Chancellor Scholz is in deep trouble as well. I heard that he's been investigated for tax fraud or something. So this story came out. They might probably use that as an excuse to kick him out of office. Who knows? But this German Chancellor and these Green Party idiots need to go, unfortunately. They are ruining the country. They need to go. Germany needs to be run by some competent leaders. They need to start talking with Russia, start building their relationship up with Russia, with everything that they've done to destroy that relationship. They need to start working with Russia. And they can be a neutral country. They can work with the West. They can work with Russia. I mean, they've done that. They've done that under Merkel. When Germany was under Merkel, Germany was getting along with the West. They were getting along with Russia. There was no problem. So what's the problem now? Seriously, why can't they do the same instead of being puppets of the United States? Absolutely ridiculous. So the same thing's happening in UK as well. Millions could be left without heat and food in the winter, London Mayor warns. And I gotta say, guys, I walked into my local supermarket. This was last week, recently as last week, and there was no food left on the shelves. It was completely empty. I had the biggest shock of my life. I've never seen it that empty before in my life. And I also walked out, and I saw rubbish all over the streets. Either the bin men or somebody's not being paid to clean the streets, because there's rubbish all over the streets. It was absolutely filthy. Absolutely filthy. And I'm going to show you some examples. I'm going to show you some clips just to prove what I said. There's like rubbish everywhere. You can see my local supermarket. Everything's literally empty. Everything's empty. Anyway, let's move on to Germany again. And Bloomberg has obviously reported that Germany is at risk of deindustrialization. They're not at risk of deindustrialization. They will be deindustrialized. They will be. They're not at risk. It's impossible not to, unless they completely change their party and ditch the US and its allies and go with Russia. They will completely deindustrialize. There's no way about it, guys. There's no way about it. So this is quite an interesting story. No longer a pariah. Russia and China could be about to normalize North Korea and leave the US with another Asian headache. So, as you know, there are UN sanctions against North Korea, and which means, with China becoming, one of the veto members as well as Russia, they are very, very limited what they can do with North Korea, and they have been for some time now. However, with everything that's going on in the world, with South Korea's provocations against China, putting Thaad missiles in there and breaking one treaty after another, breaking one promise after another, US breaking one promise after another, US and its allies flying planes across the North Korean border, across the Chinese border as well. Things are escalating, ships being sent on the Taiwanese Strait, the US escalating Taiwanese tensions. Maybe it's about time that China and Russia starts normalizing relations with North Korea. And I'd like to also put Iran in that bracket as well. Other countries like Venezuela, Cuba. So what if China, Russia starts selling, dangerous weapons to North Korea, starts giving them technology, how to build nuclear subs, for example, how to build lots of other military stuff. Same thing with Iran. How about Russia sells Iran S-400 anti-aircraft missiles? How about China sells Iran those radars that find F-35s? So those F-35s will be absolutely useless with those radars. So if Israel decides to bomb Iran at some point, which they want to, I can see they really, really want to, things will be a lot more difficult if Iran has S-400s and if Iran has those radars that China produces, which finds F-35s as well as other stealth aircraft. So their job is going to be made much, much more difficult. So how about they do that? No, you would say maybe they shouldn't do that. Why not? Because America's doing it. You can see America's doing it with Ukraine. America's doing it with Taiwan. America's doing it with every other country they seem fit. So why can't China and Russia do it? It just makes no sense. And I think things will change over the next few years. I think there will be a normalization of relations with North Korea. There'll be a lot more trade. There'll be a lot more weapons selling. There'll be a lot more weapons sharing as well, intelligence sharing, and they'll be selling technology as well. And the same with Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, other pariahs around the world. You know, this is the root of multilateralism that US wanted. You know, if US wants to completely cut off Russia from the world, they want a Cold War with China, well, I'm sure they will fight back. They will do those kind of things, and it will give US and its allies a lot more headaches if they wanted to go along those routes. So it's much more better to engage with China. It's much more better to engage with Russia, identify where its red lines are, start to de-escalate things rather than escalate. Because once things start escalating, it's just not going to be good. Not going to be good for the US. Not going to be good for the world. Certainly not good for humanity. So what's behind the surge in America's youth crime? So there's a lot of crime going on in the United States, and every time I watch CNN or Fox News, sometimes I watch those channels just to get an alternative view on how they're reporting it. Every single day there's like lots of crime going on. There's a lot of crime that gets unreported. For example, in some states, they don't even arrest people when they steal things from shops I think it's under $1,000 or something. If they steal something or shoplift something under $1,000, they don't really take action because it's waste of police resources apparently. And there's a lot of homeless people going into shops, grabbing stuff and walking out, and it just drains police resources. There's nothing that gets done. There was pictures about a mail that gets stolen from trains and trucks, and the youngsters are seeing that, and they're seeing there's so much crime going on and the police are not doing anything. So what do the youngsters do? They start doing it themselves. And especially with this high inflation going on in USA, and the rich-poor divide has grown so far right now. People are coming out of the pandemic absolutely broke. People going from middle class to poverty. People that were having a nice life a few years ago now living in the streets, homeless. And you can see a lot of youngsters going out in the streets and going into life of crime to either defeat their drug habits, or maybe they just fed up, or maybe they just want to rebel, or they have other reasons. And there seems to be a huge crime epidemic happening around the United States, and things are going to get worse, rather than get better. As you know, the inflation is rising, the cost of living is rising even further. The middle class are being driven to poverty, and the rich are just getting richer and the poor are just getting poorer. So rather than USA focusing on looking after its own, looking after the middle class, looking after the poverty, they're going around the world, pushing for conflicts, pushing for war with Russia, doing proxy wars with Russia, pushing for war with China, pushing for war with Iran, pushing for war. There's another war that could be brewing between Israel and Lebanon as well. There's so many issues that's happening all around the world, and the US has got some hand in it in some way or other. So rather than pushing for war and fighting proxy wars around the world, why don't they just save that money and start looking after their own for a change? That's not going to happen, is it? Anyway, let's move on. So if you thought that Rishi Sunak was a better candidate than Liz Truss, I'm telling you, they're both bad as each other. So Rishi Sunak has said a couple of controversial things recently. He also hates solar panels, by the way, and now he's asking for Putin to be barred from the G20. Well, let me tell you something. Rishi Sunak has no authority to tell the Indonesian leader who to bar and who not to, because Indonesia is holding the next G20. So it's up to them who they invite and who they don't invite. It's got nothing to do with Rishi Sunak. And Rishi Sunak is not going to even be the next leader, so I don't even know why he's even bothering. He also asked for sanctions to be put in Iran because of the Salman Rushdie attack. So I just thought this article was really funny. Erdogan to brief Putin on talks with Zelensky. And I just thought this picture was absolutely hilarious. Look at Zelensky looking up and at Erdogan here. And the reason I found this funny is because there's a clip being circulated of Zelensky when he was being a stand-up comic back in the day. And he was taking the mickey out of Erdogan. He was basically saying all sorts of nasty things about Erdogan as well at the time. And obviously he was a stand-up comic and he didn't say any nice things. And I'm sure Erdogan knows about this, and I'm sure somebody has briefed Erdogan that, you know what, Zelensky back in the day was taking the pee out of you. And this is what he said. I'm sure this clip has been shown to Erdogan. I can't show you the clip, but I've seen it in Redacted, that YouTube channel Redacted. They showed it, and you're welcome to check one of their channels. It happened over the last few days, and I saw it there, and I just found it absolutely hilarious. And the fact that Zelensky is now standing next to Erdogan, and look at the way he's looking at him, I just found it absolutely hilarious. How things turn very fast. You know, you can't get away with saying lots of shit about people and not expect to have the consequences for it afterwards. So the US speaks out on Zelensky's G20 participation. So they said that if Putin takes part in the summit, Ukraine's leader should also attend in some form, the White House said. So it sounds like they want Zelensky to either turn up or like being part of a video or feed of some sort. And as you know, Zelensky has been very, very active in his video feeds all over the world, and he's been gaining standing ovations and stuff. But again, US has got no jurisdiction over what Indonesia do, what they don't do. You know, it's all up to Indonesia. They're a sovereign country, and I'm sure the US has been pressurizing Indonesia not to invite Putin. And guess what? They told the US to shut the hell up. We're going to do whatever we want. And US is now saying that Zelensky should participate in some way or another, as if Indonesia is going to listen to them. If they're going to listen to United States, they would have not invited Putin in the first place. So do you really think they're going to listen to the US and say, let's have a live feed with Zelensky? I mean, what the hell is Zelensky going to do except say, we need weapons, we need money, you know, give us more money, give us more weapons, Slava Ukraine, and that's it. Get a couple of standing ovations. I mean, what more is he going to do apart from that? Absolutely ridiculous. So finally, guys, I want to kind of talk about the Chinese economy, and I think one of these channels, I have a lot of respect for them, by the way. I'm not bad-mouthing them or anything. I just feel that they are very, very misinformed. One of the channels last few days, I've seen that they said that China is going through a recession. I have to, politely disagree with them, very, very politely, with no, disrespect. First of all, China is not under any recession. People have been saying China's gonna be in recession for over 20-30 years now. A lot of Westerners have been saying that. A lot of people have been saying that. China is not under any recession. First of all, the foreign direct investment has been rising in China. And you can see here, foreign direct investment has grown 17% year on year to 793 billion yuan. That's 117 billion in the first 7 months of the year. And not only that, guys, not only that, you can see China's here. Foreign direct investment totaled 123 billion during the 7-month period, up 21.5% on a yearly basis. So up 21.5% on a yearly basis. So China is still the highest, foreign direct investment country in the world right now. Everybody's investing in China. Not only do you get access to cheap labor, not only do you get access to cheap investment like properties, and everything's cheap over there. Inflation's not high. Secondly, you have access to 1.4, 1.5 billion people. And thirdly, you have access to amazing supply chains, with the supply chain which actually links all of the supply chains from the world, and you have access to so many things like the BRI, and it's a great business environment to work in. So how can a country be in recession and get so much foreign direct investment? It just doesn't make sense, right? Because you're not going to, as a business, you're not going to invest in a country who's having a recession. You are not. So I can understand them saying China is in recession when there is a lockdown, for example. And I know the last few months have been very hard on China. However, the lockdowns are over. And yeah, July has been a bit sluggish. It's a bit slow. But they will recover. They will recover after the lockdown. Sometimes things take time. Factories need to reopen again. People need to start coming again. People start needing to get more confidence as well. So it takes a bit of time. It takes a few months sometimes. And you will see if there's no further lockdowns in China, how the economy of China starts bouncing back and going full steam ahead. And they are definitely not in recession, guys. The other indication they are not in recession. I mean, look at this article here. China posts record 101 billion trade surplus. That's per month. Per month, they're getting 101 billion trade surplus. So you can imagine how, you can see, exports in the US jumped 18% in July compared to a year ago. Everywhere you look, the facts don't lie. Exports are up. Trade surplus is getting better. Foreign direct investments is going up. Every single sector is going up. So you can't say that China's in recession, because if you guys want to have a serious chat with me, I can bring in a lot of facts and figures. I mean, this conversation is not long enough, because if I start talking about the Chinese economy, it's going to take like hours. So if you guys want to invite me to your channel and we can have a chat about the Chinese economy, I understand if you guys are not very well versed when it comes to China matters, but I'm here to kind of talk to you about it, here to kind of tell you stuff that you don't know about, and I can bring in the facts and figures to show that China is definitely not in recession. Things are actually looking up in China, and that's all I wanted to say, guys. Like I said, I'm being respectful here, but if you don't know about a certain subject, about a certain country, either get other people to talk about it or don't mention it at all, because it's just not good, guys. So that's it for now. So that's all I wanted to say for today, guys. So let me know what you guys think, and I will see you on the next video. Take care for now. Bye.